Hello, my Bill 5000 Nation. How's everyone doing today? Hopefully everyone's having a great day. If not, I hope it gets better from here. We are back with another Coffeehouse Crime. This one was titled The Homeless Catfish That Became a Killer. I don't even know how that happens, so I'm actually kind of excited. Let's go ahead and get into this story. Go ahead, turn them lights down low, put on something comfy, couple, something special. Let's get intrigued. Yeah.
With a full-time job and 3 children, Ingrid Lyne was a hard-working mother and nurse with many responsibilities. Following an amicable breakup and 2 years of self-rediscovery, she was ready to find love once again. But with an extremely busy schedule, she didn't have much opportunity to get out. And after downloading the dating app Plenty of Fish, she found herself talking to a man named John. But John was not who she thought he was. And after falling in love with his tailored facade, she unknowingly allowed a dangerous man into her arms. And tragically, the consequences would be terribly.
No, dating apps are all that in a bag of chips, but whatever happened to the good old days, meeting your old lady at Walmart or through a friend or at a party or just out and about? What happened to meeting someone in real life in 3D, physically touching? What happened to that? I would be scared shitless to get on a dating app or just think, oh my God, that's so much shit.
Enormous. Welcome back to Coffeehouse Crime, folks. My name is Adrian, and today...
Hello, Adrian. My name is Bill 5000. It's a pleasure to be here once again, my friend. I really do enjoy these little visits we have every Thursday. I always end up coming out this wanting to cry all over the place ever so tenderly into my pillow. But it's a pleasure to be here, all the same.
We're looking at how a date from Plenty of Fish turned into a brutal murder. Ingrid Lyne was a loving mother, a hard-working nurse, and someone who deserved to find love. But sadly...
And yes, the sun is out here for the first time in like 2 weeks, and it's warm, and my allergies... So I can say.
After a stroke of bad luck, she found a lunatic instead. Just to let you know, Coffeehouse Crime is all about true crime, strange and chilling stories. So if you like darkly fascinating content, please consider subscribing. And if you enjoy drinking coffee while watching my videos, then please check out my very own exclusive coffee brand, Classified. I'll leave a link in the...
Bro, how did you know coffee is the lifeblood of Bill 5000 Nation, homie? Like, if it wasn't for coffee, none of this would be possible. Coffee runs through my veins. I pee coffee creamer. I poo coffee cake. I don't, but that'd be cool. So, if you are a coffee enthusiast like me or old Adrian here, how about you go on over to the Bill 5000 merch store, grab yourself a Bill 5000 mug. We have several different designs. Go ahead, get yours today. Enjoy it with a nice pot of classified coffee if you'd like. Oh yeah, we're a good team, Adrian. You bring the coffee, I'll bring the cups, homie. I've never tried this coffee. I would like to actually try this coffee, see if it's any good. I've had Jacksepticeye's coffee. Top of the morning, and that shit's awesome. No lie, it is fucking amazing.
Description down below. And now, with all of that said, please grab yourself a coffee, pull up a seat and get ready for the deep dive. This is the case of Ingrid Lyne. Welcome to Seattle, folks. Now, when it comes to Seattle, the obvious thing to talk about would be coffee. And no surprise, you're right. The city first began producing fresh roasted coffee more than 100 years ago. Fast forward to the 1960s, and the coffeehouse scene suddenly introduced espresso drinks to the menu. A move that, eventually, would transform Seattle into a caffeinated powerhouse. From primitive kettles to state-of-the-art espresso machines, the science of roasting and the art of brewing has evolved thanks to local innovators and a tech-savvy environment, where coffee has become an integral part of the city's metropolitan identity. So you probably won't be surprised to learn that I was actually born here, and suddenly it's all starting to make sense now, isn't it? Today, we're traveling 10 miles south of baby Adrian.
Bro, I wasn't born there and I want to go there. I want the coffee. You gotta put the coffee inside of my body, bro.
Hometown to Renton, Seattle. Renton is a relatively small city in King County with a population of just over 100,000 residents. Boeing dominates the employment market here and, interestingly enough, is the final assembly point for the Boeing 737. Other than that, there is not a lot to talk about here, but it does play home to a very important person in this case, and her name is Ingrid Lyne.
Hi, Ingrid.
Born on August 2nd, 1975, Ingrid was a small girl with a big personality. And while details about her early life are fairly sparse, it is obvious that the people she touched in her life cherished her greatly. Described as someone always smiling and laughing, she was a bright spark and was very easy to get along with. Moving into her young adulthood, Ingrid set her sights on a career in the medical field. It was for that reason that, alongside some encouragement from her family, she decided to study nursing. After graduating high school at Canyon del Oro in Tucson, Arizona, she then worked towards a degree at the University of Arizona. Much like high school, Ingrid excelled in the classroom, and while at university, she received her bachelor's degree in 1997. And 3 years later, at the turn of the new millennium, she moved to the small city of Renton. Now, Seattle's coffee may be out of this world, but so is its medical care. This means that Ingrid was in the right place to let her career flourish. And so, after moving into the area, she began work at the Seattle Swedish Medical Center. Much like her academic performance, she was known to perform well in her job and worked with both skill and grace. With her vibrant, happy-go-lucky attitude, she was the type of woman to naturally attract people around her, and eventually, this included a local man named Phil. After a chance encounter, the two fell in love rather quickly, and moving forward several years.
It was fucking Phil, wasn't it? Back whenever I first started this channel, I rooted for a dude. His name was Phil. Come to find out, Phil was the bad guy in the whole story. I forget what the name of the video is, but he made me look like an ass. Now, I can't root for Phil's. Sorry if your name is Phil, but I just can't do it. I just can't. It was Phil.
They were married with 3 children named Reese, Brooke, and Noelle. Sadly, all good things eventually come to an end, some much quicker than others. And after 14 years together in Seattle, Ingrid and Phil decided to break up. Despite their marriage ending, the two kept in regular contact and made sure that their kids had well-rounded childhoods. As a result, they would often share schedules. Phil described his ex-wife as someone that he respected immensely. She was kind, caring, and loving, and the type of mother to put her daughters first. Love is something that takes time to grow, and sometimes even longer to let go. But 2 years after divorcing Phil, and at the age of 40, she was finally ready to start dating again. Being a mother and a nurse was a very time-consuming combination. However, wanting to get back onto the dating scene, she downloaded the app Plenty of Fish to get started. While here, she looked around for someone who may catch her interest. And not long after joining the dating site, she ran into a handsome, clean-cut man named John. John Robert Charlton was a 37-year-old man with—
I don't trust John. Phil, I'm warming up to Phil. I think Phil might be an okay person. Well, I don't know yet. Jury's still out. But now John is our enemy. Everyone joined the We Hate John Club. It was John.
Green eyes and an average build of 5'9".
Sorry,
in
Johns.
his profile, he claimed that he was a non-smoker and that he only liked to drink on occasion. He further wrote that he was a student from Seattle and was a Catholic. Looking into his self-written biography, Ingrid noticed that his longest relationship was also just over 2 years ago. John wrote, "My intent here is to simply make friends and to meet up for conversation. Not much of the crowded bar and club type. Mello is quite more my scene. Not here for dating, only friendships. This is not some scam to get laid either. However, if we did meet up as friends and grabbed coffee, beer, comedy show, etc., whatever people do as friends. Now, despite the weird wording, Ingrid didn't notice any immediate red flags. Everything seemed to check out. John was a student, religious, and merely seeking friendship. The two soon began to message each other regularly, and after several wholesome conversations, John and Ingrid decided to meet up in person. Following a successful first date, the two agreed to meet again, and this would eventually turn into 3 or 4 dates per week. John would always travel to her home in Renton, where they then spent their time together going out for...
Bro, I'm married and I don't even go on that many damn dates a week. I mean, don't get me wrong, you still gotta have date night and stuff, and that usually involves like a pizza from somewhere and some boob tube. You can get on the old boob tube.
Drinks, socializing at bars, and spending the night together in bed. Now, it did take a while for secrets to start to emerge, but after some time together, Ingrid realized that John didn't
own those glasses. Those are badass glasses, bro.
In fact, seem to have a place of his own. In addition to this, she realized that he didn't own his own.
How can you have a badass pair of glasses like that and not have your own place, John? You piece of shit. You need to turn over your glasses, homie.
Car, or even have a steady job either. Although these were the first of serious red flags, Ingrid didn't seem fazed. John treated her with kindness and respect, and in all honesty, she did really enjoy his company. Ingrid was a naturally hardworking person, and with a job in nursing and 3 young girls to look after, she really felt that she deserved time off whenever she could take it. It is worth mentioning though that, although Ingrid did appreciate her time with John, she kept him a secret from her friends and family. Maybe it was because John didn't have much going for himself at the time, and so she felt a little embarrassed to associate herself with him. But in her mind, this relationship was casual at its core and was not something to write home about. Either way, the night of April the 8th, 2016 was similar to any other Friday. Earlier in the day, Phil had taken their 3 daughters, who are now 12, 10 and 7 respectively, away for the night. And now that her shift at the hospital was finally over and her daughters were in the safe hands of their father, Ingrid got ready for another night out with John. The two had plans to watch the Seattle baseball team known as the Mariners play at their home stadium. But first, they travelled across the road to a nearby bar named the Beer Gardens. A few drinks later, and the two made their way to the home stadium. But that is when Ingrid realised that John appeared to be much more drunk than she'd previously noticed. Despite this, they both made it in time to watch the game, and as far as we know, at this point in time, they had another enjoyable night together.
Oh, that's good.
April the 9th, 2016. At 7:30 AM the following morning, Phil arrived at Ingrid's house to drop off the kids. However, as soon as he arrived at the property, something seemed wrong. Ingrid's car, a 2015 Toyota Highlander, was nowhere to be seen. Hopping out of his car, he knocked on the front door, but, worryingly, was met with silence. With no response, he called her mobile phone, but still, nothing. Next, he sent her a text message, but yet again, he was met with an unread message and a lack of any response. At this stage, Phil felt a sickening feeling growing in his stomach. It was very unusual for Ingrid to leave her messages unanswered like this. She was a very reliable and punctual woman.
She's a mother.
Especially when it came to her daughters.
Yeah.
And so...
I better say, even if she's not punctual for anything else, those are some... That's her babies, bro. You're going to be punctual for that shit. You're going to be on that shit, bro. Red flags. Oh, my God. Oh.
Not knowing what else to do, Phil called Ingrid's mother, Georgia. By the way, Georgia and Ingrid were very close to one another, not only sharing a Verizon mobile phone account, but also having a spare set of keys to each other's properties. After learning that her daughter was missing, Georgia understandably began to panic, and she too had a feeling that maybe she was in danger. After rushing to her daughter's home, she used her spare key to gain entry. The house was eerily silent, and despite calling out Ingrid's name, no one responded. Room by room, Phil and Georgia were met with emptiness, and opening the door to the master bedroom would spell serious concern.
I'm stressing. I'm stressing like a
An
motherfucker.
overwhelming smell of bleach filled the room, and her belongings, including her wallet, keys, and phone, were scattered across the area, indicating that Ingrid had probably intended to be there herself. After following the smell of bleach with their noses, Georgia and Phil found themselves outside of the bathroom door, and after opening the door, they were greeted with the chilling sight of a 15-inch pruning saw, which remained haphazardly propped up against the sink. With large serrated and curved blades, pruning saws are typically used by landscaping professionals and are perfect for cutting through vegetation and thick tree branches. Following these terrifying clues,
thick.
Georgia dialed 911.
Not thick. Couple inches at max. Not thick. Not thick. But an arm or a leg, yeah, you could cut through it easy with one of those. I guarantee it. I've cut through some limbs that were a little bit bigger than what I probably should have cut through with it. And it still made pretty quick work of it. Like, they're not the fastest in the world, so it's still going to take some time. And I imagine bone is a lot harder than fucking wood, right? Is it? I don't know. I know in video games, bone axes and stuff are stronger than wood ones, so that's just what I'm going with. Video game knowledge. You gotta love it.
Immediately. With police officers on the way, Georgia left Ingrid's home to speak to all of the neighbors nearby, while simultaneously messaging friends and family to ask if they had any idea where she was. One of her friends mentioned that, at around 10:30 the night before, she had messaged her to say that she was out on a date with John, but hadn't heard from her since. And one of her neighbors mentioned that the name John sounded rather familiar to them, and perhaps he was the last person to see her. Now, thankfully, since Georgia shared a phone account with her daughter, she could actually check the phone records to see if anything unusual stood out. And found within these records, Georgia noticed one number that came up much more frequently than the others. And surprise, surprise, after googling that
Fucking
phone
John.
number, it came up with a Facebook profile that went by the name of John Charlton. Out of desperation for more information, she texted John for support. He would reply almost immediately, saying, "This is John Charlton. I thought she had her kids today." Georgia mentioned that, despite her daughter being missing, her purse, keys, and phone were at home, and she further told John that she had already called 911 for support. John responded with, "911? What's going on? We went to the Marinas game last night, but we didn't stay the night together because she had her kids today. Not sure what she told you about mine and her relationship." After this message, John suddenly turned silent. Shortly after, police arrived on the scene, and upon inspecting the bathroom, one of the first things they noticed was the saw. Now, obviously, finding a saw in a bathroom was highly suspicious,
Yeah.
and this immediately gave officers the impression that perhaps foul play was involved. With closer inspection of the
100.
bathroom, forensics could not seem to find any trace of human tissue, and to add to this, there were no obvious signs of a struggle or altercation. However, what they didn't know is that several miles away and at the same time, police received a very disturbing phone call.
911, what are you reporting?
This is going to sound really bizarre, but I went to go grab my recycling bin, and there were 3 white trash bags in the recycling bin, and I went to lift them out. And honestly, it's freaking me out, but it looks like a foot.
Only 10 miles away from Ingrid's home and located
I would never recycle again. Yeah, motherfucker went out of the way to be a good person, you know, better than all the rest of us recycling type people. And motherfucker went out there, put some recycling in his bin, and boom, there's a foot. Oh, fuck. I mean, I don't know what would you guys do if you went out and checked your garbage and there was just a fucking foot? I'd shit right there, right in the middle of the road. I'd shit right in the middle of the road. Oh my God.
On 21st Avenue, East Pine Street, a resident had found human remains in one of his recycling bins. Although Seattle did not instantly make the connection between Ingrid and this morbid discovery, it would soon become obvious who the severed body parts belonged to, and 6 hours later, at 4:30 p.m, that assimilation would finally be made. When compared to a picture taken from Ingrid's driver's license, a visual confirmation was made of the remains. It turns out that the condition of Ingrid's head was pristine and had no signs of decomposition. It was for this reason that police made the sad realization on her identity, and although it took several days for analysis to confirm a match between Ingrid and the body parts, everyone was under the strong assumption it was her. Broken blood vessels observed in her eyes, alongside hemorrhaging on her neck, made it clear that Ingrid had fallen victim to strangulation. The extent of her injuries was so severe that it was believed that whoever had killed her must have done so with a lot of force, possibly suggesting anger behind the motive. Although no drugs were found in her system, it was noted that she was drunk at the time of her death, with a blood alcohol level of 0.074. With a murder case on their hands, police wasted no time in moving forward. Within 24 hours of the discovery, they obtained a search warrant for Ingrid's home, and after a close examination of her bathroom, trace amounts of blood were found in the drain. Removing the drain and examining the plumbing beneath, forensic investigators found much more obvious signs of tissue and blood. And after searching the kitchen, they discovered an empty box of trash bags. Notably, they were the same type of bags used to dispose of her limbs. Only one day later, and on April the 11th, police located a missing vehicle, which was parked in downtown Seattle and only 3 miles from Seattle Stadium. Officers therefore knew that this was very unlikely to be a coincidence. Thankfully, Georgia was able to help with this, as she had successfully completed her own part of the investigation. She shared the messages she had had with John to officers, who, in return, quickly marked him as a suspect. And only a matter of hours later, he was found almost 50 miles away at Lake Stevens. John was immediately brought in for questioning, where officers quickly noticed how strangely he was behaving. To begin with, John seemed completely matter-of-fact and nonchalant. In fact, he didn't even appear to be fazed that his partner was missing or dead. As soon as officers began to ask questions, his demeanor shifted to one of annoyance, almost as if he couldn't be bothered to help officers find her. John also seemed to have abrasions on his forehead and hands, as well as scratches on his lip, chin, and chest. No surprise, this raised further suspicion amongst officers, who now wondered if these were perhaps self-defense wounds. When questioned about Ingrid's disappearance, John continued to sound disinterested. However, he did admit that the two went to the beer gardens before watching the game. He also revealed that, rather conveniently, he blacked out soon after the game finished, and couldn't remember anything later that night. But you see, John also claims that, although the two must have made it back to Ingrid's house, she wouldn't allow him to stay the night because she wasn't yet ready for him to meet the kids. And shortly after making this comment, he seemed to smarten up a little bit and asked for a lawyer. I wonder why. While investigators decided what to do next in the other room, John casually rolled up his jacket, placed it on the floor, and then tried to sleep. Is anybody else getting Jodi Arias vibes here? Without any solid evidence, officers were forced to eventually let him go. But regardless, he remained their prime suspect, and many believed that he had something to do with Ingrid's death. As a result, he was kept under a very close watch. As John walked away as a free man, police scoured for more evidence back at her property. They searched high and low for any potential clue that could link John to her death. And 2 days later, on April the 13th, investigators finally found what they were looking for. They found solid DNA evidence between himself and the crime scene, that of course being located in Ingrid's bathroom. He was therefore arrested on charges of first-degree murder and also theft, and was booked into King County Jail on a $2 million bond. And with a bond this high, there was no way he would get out of jail while a case was built against him. Sadly, as John sat behind bars, more people would make more disturbing discoveries. It was on April the 15th that more remains were found in another recycling bin in Seattle, before happening again for a third time 3 days later on April the 18th. And as the general public learned of these discoveries, the media also revealed that Ingrid's supposed killer had finally been caught.
Police near Seattle are holding a man suspected of killing a mother of 3 that he met online. Ingrid Lyne's body was found over the weekend. She was supposed to be with the suspect, John Charlton, on the night she disappeared. John Blackstone shows us how police are checking to see if he's connected to other crimes.
The murder of Ingrid Lyne, a single mother of 3 young daughters, has shocked her close-knit neighborhood. Friends say Lyne planned to go to a Mariners baseball game Friday night with a date she met online, 37-year-old John Charlton. Hours later, and 10 miles from her house, a homeowner called police after finding body parts, including a foot, in plastic bags left in a recycling bin.
We're working closely with the victim's family. All the evidence leads in the direction of that particular victim.
Detectives connected the 2 cases, searched Lyne's home for evidence, and identified Charlton as a suspect.
We used some forensic evidence dealing with telephone calls and cell towers. By utilizing those, we were led to a suspect early on.
Neighbors say Charlton has been staying at this home. He was arrested Monday and booked into King County Jail on suspicion of murder. The investigation is ongoing. Police found Lyne's missing car late Monday night. They're also looking into whether Charlton could be tied to similar crimes.
We'll look at other crimes, and if any of them seem to be similar in appearance, then we'll continue down that road.
For CBS This Morning, John Blackstone.
With this story becoming quite notorious in the Seattle area, it caught the attention of one of John's ex-girlfriends. And safe to say, her story was not reassuring. She was able to confirm that John was in fact homeless, and that she sometimes let him stay over at her place whenever he seemed interested. Now, John was actually supposed to help her with some yard work on the Saturday morning after the baseball game, but showed up much later than expected. And when he did, she noticed multiple small wounds all over his body when he arrived. When asked about it, John appeared to be dismissive and frustrated. He claimed that someone tried to rob him, but it wasn't a big deal. Deep down, she knew that John had to be lying, but eventually dropped it. He then remained with her for 48 hours through Saturday and Sunday night. Interesting side note, but that ex-girlfriend was eventually invited onto Dr. Phil's talk show, where she would go on to discuss what exactly happened that weekend. She also mentioned that, although John could sometimes be very loving, she was not surprised when she heard the news about the murder. No surprise, it turns out that this was not John's first run-in with the law, and in fact, he had a plethora of charges and convictions before meeting Ingrid. This included charges between 1997 to 2009, ranging from felony theft and aggravated robbery through to negligent driving and 2 misdemeanor assaults. Due to these nefarious actions, he had been jailed twice before, which is something he had failed to mention to Ingrid. No surprise, but John had a troubled past when it came to alcohol and drugs, and his relationship with his parents, Ray and Joanne, also became strained as his behavior became more erratic. In fact, they became so discouraged by it that, in the year 2006, they filed a restraining order against their son. This was honestly a fair decision to make too. John would often arrive unannounced at their property, both drunk and furious. He was often verbally aggressive and abusive, and even tried to provoke fights. John's father would also admit that his son's bad habits were causing tension amongst others in the family, and that John admitted to him that he felt that he was becoming mentally unstable and possibly unable to control his actions. Moving into the legal proceedings of this case, prosecutors immediately got to work on building a case against John. Meanwhile, his defense team did their very best to cover all possible counter-arguments. And after almost 2 long years, John Charlton was finally put on trial for his actions, where he'd face Ingrid's family, friends, and community at the stand. Now, despite initially denying his involvement, John would actually surprise the judge by pleading guilty to murder in the first degree. This decision would thankfully save Ingrid's family and friends from having to relive the traumatic experience and provide some privacy. But the judge would not let him go easily, as before a sentencing, she would read more than 24 letters made by family and friends. Ingrid was described as a bright and humorous woman who was filled with spirit, and these letters served to highlight the impact this crime had on the people of Renton. Her ex-husband, Phil, took to the stand to address the court and tell of how the case had affected him and his daughters. In a heartfelt statement, he said, "There will be no more motherly advice from Ingrid, no more July the 4th holidays in Big Fork, no more trips to the beach, and no more Thursday night dinners at a steakhouse. My children's children will never have a maternal grandmother." Now, despite John literally throwing the towel in, his defense team would still stick their own necks out in the courtroom. They urged the public to exercise caution before demonizing someone who had yet to be convicted. While the evidence pointed towards John, including John himself, it is true that a clear motive was never established, and that this could have had the potential to trip up the prosecution. Directly addressing John Robert Charlton, Superior Court Judge Julie said, "What you did was vicious and cruel beyond anyone's belief." Despite initially stating that she would lock him up for life, she eventually sentenced John to 28 years in prison, which, under the state's sentencing guidelines, was the maximum sentence she could serve. But before his trial finished, John himself would address the courtroom in a moment of genuine remorse.
Fuck him.
I do agree that there are no words that can alleviate the pain that I've caused. And for that, I'm truly sorry.
And with that said, John was led away to
Fuck
begin his
you.
28-year-long sentence.
Would you be sorry if you was going to
bars.
prison? Would you? Piece of
One
shit.
important thing to note here is how well the police responded.
You took a mother away from 3 young, beautiful ladies. They will never get to sit down with their mother again and have braid your hair parties and eat popcorn and talk about boys. Go over all the things that mothers and daughters get to go over. Because you're a gigantic piece of shit. And take your apology, turn it sideways, shove it down your peen hole, bruh. Trash ass motherfucker.
To this case. For those who have been following the channel for a while now, you will know that police are often slow to get things done, and sometimes it can take multiple days to even take an emerging case seriously. But in this case, local police immediately sprang into action.
Hell yeah.
Listened to Georgia, obtained
Love
a
to hear
warrant,
that.
and legally pinned John down. And because of their rapid response and dedication to the case, he was compromised in record timing, which gave him no chance to cover his tracks or even try to escape. Sadly though, none of this will ever help bring Ingrid back, and as a result, 3 daughters have had to face childhood without a mother, an ex-partner without a good friend, and a family without a bright, cheerful spark. As you likely expected, especially if you come to this channel often, Ingrid's death highlighted the absolute importance of online safety. She had only been dating John for around about 1 month before she was murdered. And so, this story reminded people how easy it is to allow someone dangerous into your life.
Yes.
One thing that surprises me is the lack of verification required to message or hook up with other people online. And to add to that, there is no actual way of telling if people are convicted felons or not. While certain apps are now requiring verification, there are still many that have yet to catch up. And the terrible thing is, this has been going on for years. Anyway, folks, I think that pretty much covers.
Wow, that was a fucked up story, bruh. It was John. Fuck John. I really enjoyed today's video. If you guys enjoyed today, I really enjoyed today's video. If you all enjoyed today's video as much as I did, please go down there, leave a thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow. And while you're down there, if you want, go on over and slap that subscribe button. Become part of the Built for 1000 Nation. We do some crazy shit here. And if you want to know when that crazy shit happens, ding that bell. It might work for you. It might not. It probably won't. But if it do, jump in on one of my premieres, go over in the live chat and be like, "Hey, Bill, you dinged me. You dinged me real good." Leave a like and dip. That's all you got to do. As always, be good to one another. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Fucking John, piece of shit.